I have done many RPGs in the past. I have done 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. I have done Pathfinder. I have done Starfinder, which is basically the same as Pathfinder, but space. I have done Dark Heresy. And I have done several sort of homebrewed ones, which, although interesting, lacked combat in some cases. And then there's my old-time favorite, Rogue Trader. A RPG that is no longer in print, actually, thanks to Games Workshop being, well, Games Workshop. But I'm not here to complain about that. I am here to tell you the story about the most incompetent crew in the entire fucking galaxy. This is the story of the crew of the ship. That is what we fucking called our ship. The ship. The story all begins with a lonely tech priest and an astropath. We were part of a rogue trader house known as House Galadria. Some of you might notice the name of this house. Well, that's because House Galadria is the house of my rogue trader. But that's a story for a different time. As the story goes, my tech priest and the astropath were sent to a far-off world called Delta 9. It was a fringe world, but apparently my family had found something very important. My tech priest came from the moon of Decius 9, and owed a life debt to the House Galadria due to them providing several very important STCs for the machine cult. As a result, we gave them a night house and access to our Mechanicum moon, for lack of better words. I was part of that place, or at least my tech priest Tink was at one point. Designation T1NK59877. Tink for short, as most players would eventually call him. The next person in our party was Calzone. He was a player who had never set foot inside of the 40k universe, and so was kind of a noob. When I first started playing, I was a very strict tech priest, very aloof, and able to fix most problems. The problem was I was a tech heretic. Well, not openly, at least. I had a few Eldar pistols and a few leftover bits from Tau plasma rifles, but I didn't really have any collection. I had a fascination with the stuff. It was a nice little idea. I always wanted to build my own guns in this game. The ship is coming in for a landing on Delta 10, the planet which we've been sent to. Originally, there was supposed to be a ship to be excavated there, but we were 10 years late on schedule. Now, we could understand a few years being late. This is, from what we understood, a 40k ship, the smallest of which are about 2 kilometers long. That takes some time to dig out of the muck, but 10 years was stretching it at this point. And so we had been sent in to figure out what was happening. The astropath was sent with me so that we'd be able to send messages back, while I would be to check on the actual physical state of the ship. As we came into land, it was raining, and the commissar and the local Galadrian general officer came to visit us. We immediately inquired why, in the good name of the God Emperor and the Omnisire, were they running late. They both looked at each other very uncomfortably and said that they were having trouble with the local wildlife. my tech priest laughed, saying then you should have burned it. They didn't get the joke, unfortunately, and then began to explain that it was a bit more problematic than that. I immediately inquired why they had not sent a message back, and they said that they tried to, except their astropath's head blew up. All 6 of them. At this point, I was a bit skeptical and told Calzone not to do anything rash for the time being. He was a psyker, and in my experience with psychers, they tend to have a very bad habit of going boom. Calzone, being new, shrugged and said alright, and started playing along with the game. He didn't exactly know what was going on, but he started acting quite large and important, which he was, being an astropath, except in 40K, people don't like psychers at all. They're usually seen as mutants, too unstable, and more importantly, very likely to get possessed. Possessed by what, you may ask? I'll get to that in a second. As we were later led into the complex, it was quite a large camp. About maybe 2,000 guardsmen had the place on lockdown, along with a small division of 50 Skitari and about 5 engineering and tech priests, give or take. We had 3 Earthshaker platforms and a handful of vehicles. No tanks, unfortunately, just a Torosk, and a few outdated Doom Buggy-esque vehicles. We also had a handful of flyers, but they were currently gone off on another mission. Anyway, as I was saying, we were led into the main command base, where we met with our first strange happening of this place. We found a black obsidian disc, jagged and edged with runes in it, simply floating in the center of the room. It was chained to about 4 chains made of high-density steel, as my tech priest could tell, and was put into what looked to be a zoo cage of some kind. It was not moving, and when we inquired what this was exactly, we were told that the creature that would be found in the next room was flying on it. Tink immediately took an interest in it, looking at it strangely, and almost tempted to poke it, but unfortunately it was too far away. The strange thing is, Tink couldn't understand a single thing about it, despite knowing basics about, well, the Dark Mechanicum. Conclusion, whatever the thing was, it was not mechanical in nature, or electronic. We were taken to the second room, where we were met with our first inhabitant that we'd ever see of this damned planet. It was blue, had a beak for its mouth, eyes that were shaped like a hawk's, and a body covered in feathers, elongated and emaciated. The fingers were long like talons and claws. We didn't quite understand what it was. And then in its left hand, almost seared into the skin, was a black rod. The creature was fascinating to Tink, though he was not much of a biologist. Calzone sensed something strange, though, in the room. A presence. He tried to make a will save, and he succeeded. And then the body started moving. Both of us realized that what the man was carrying in his hand was a force staff, and a demon had possessed the object, and what we assumed was trying to now possess the corpse of its old owner. Tink, immediately overreacting, pulls out his bolter and plants a shot right into center mass of the thing. Blue blood goes scattering everywhere. And it's basically turned into cranberry juice, or blueberry juice in this case. The problem is the staff goes tumbling out of its hand and now starts rolling towards Calzone. Cue the Tom and Jerry running music. Yes, this is how our game started. With Calzone trying to run away, knowing that if that thing touches him, he will be paralyzed, or at least, well, at the very least, a demon will try to take over his soul, starts running. Tink immediately tries to grapple the thing as it starts rolling faster and faster towards Calzone. About 15 minutes of this happens until Tink finally manages to get his mechadendrites around it. The thing is currently trying to force its way out of his hand, and Calzone grabs a force sword and tries to strike it. He ends up hitting me. My tech priest screams out a few insults, calling his mother a toaster, and that he was an inbred fuck who couldn't understand the backside of a sword, but this was all in binary, so he didn't really care. The second swing he got around managed to hit the damn staff straight through, cut down and shattered. There was a loud "No!" coming from the staff as the demon was sent to another 10,000 years of slumber. Okay, actually only about 1,000 years, but details. We all kind of looked at each other, realized what the shit we were dealing with was chaos. And Calzone was told to make an emergency, well, communication outside of the system. That would take months, we knew. But it was the best option we had. Calzone was sent over to the choir chamber, while Tink was starting to get together an expedition force. It was actually at this point that we got our first critical hit of the game. Calzone, in his chamber, sent out an astropathical message and rolled a natural 1. Now, for most RPG users, a natural 1 is the worst possible thing you can get. But in Rogue Trader, the lower you roll, the better. With a natural 1, he had about 6 units of success. Or was it 4? Regardless, it was very high, and well done. He actually could transmit an image of himself and spoke to another astropath aboard a vessel. He told them about what we had seen, and something about a Lord Inquisitor or something. Little did we know, we accidentally contacted the fucking Inquisition. Realizing this, when he told Tink about this, Tink immediately started hiding all of his xenotech, throwing it out, giving it to his trusty servo skull, Bob, and telling him to hide it in the mountains. At this point, the expedition had gotten together, and we had met our old and faithful friend, Sergeant Billis. By old and faithful, I mean he'd known us for about 5 minutes. But hey, details, this is the 41st millennium. You make friends fast, they die even faster. So, after talking it through with the commissar and the local colonel, we were given a Torask and another transport vehicle. A Mechanicus depot would be joining us with about 2 Skitarii and 2 guardsmen, riding sideways on a jeep. Their job would be fix one of the communication arrays along the way. We saw no real reason to worry about this, and we drove on out to the closest outpost that we could get to the ship. Supposedly, from what we found, there was one of the tech priests there who actually knew what the disc was and how it worked. We were hoping that if we could figure it out, that we might be able to expel whatever demonic presence was on this world. Keep in mind, our characters didn't exactly know what chaos was at the time. Calzone he hadn't even known what chaos was. He knew demons existed, but that was it. my character Tink was less fortunate. He had never come face to face with a demon before, but he had been into the Eye of Terror before, only for a brief moment, under a different captain. He didn't know what the ruinous powers were per se, but he knew that they existed, and that chilled him to the bone. We were hoping to find answers with the other tech priest, who went by the name of Ten, or Ten 5677. He was a good tech priest as far as I could tell, though a bit skittish. When we reached the destination and started unloading our Torosk, giving the outpost extra supplies, we met with our first wave of those things. More of these bird-like, half-man, half-vulture creatures. And that's when a strange thing happened. As Tink was unloading with his bolter into the mines, causing basically everything he touched with his bolter to explode, he noticed something rather strange. Every third shot he had with his bolter that would hit a target disapparated before even hitting it, as though hitting an invisible force field. Or his bolt would go slightly to the left for some strange reason. This was happening with all the other troops as well, and it was rather disconcerting, especially seeing as these things had swords and were bum rushing us right up in our faces. They managed to get in, Sergeant Billis mowing down quite a few as they came into the trench, killing off guardsman after guardsman. These things would rush in. Tink would have to use his axe, and Calzone would have to start using his sword. We took a hit or two, but in the end, we were all right. I mean, it wasn't like we were going to, fight these things in a prolonged battle. The fight was over quickly, but we realized just how strange of these creatures were, how difficult they would be to fight. We packed up what remained of our troops into the Torosk and the Jeep and started driving back. And that's when something strange happened. Because we realized that the communications relay hadn't been fixed. And there was no sign of the Jeep that originally had been left there. Immediately, Sergeant Billis takes the turret on the Torosk. And immediately, we hear a howl in the woods. Hundreds of those fucking things start springing out, chasing after us. It was a hectic fight. Bolts flying everywhere. We opened up the back of our Jeep and started firing out as best we could. But every time we shot one of them, 3 more would take their place. The Jeep behind us was too slow and got overtaken, but the Torosk we were in thankfully had enough speed to keep just barely ahead. That's when the flying fuckers came in, armed with enormous longbows that could actually pierce through the armor of the tank we were in. It was possibly one of the most terrifying experiences of my character's career. Desperate, Tink called into main base, when he finally could get in on radio range, calling it an airstrike, except we had no air support. So I called in for the next best thing. Earthshaker rounds, on our own position. Now, there is a bit of logic to the madness here. The hope was, originally at least, to try and drive as fast as we could. That by the time the Earthshaker rounds hit the ground, we would be out of range. We weren't out of range. As the Earthshaker rounds hit the ground, our truck went flying head over heels, killing off another 3 of our guards. Of the original Stormtrooper Guard Corps that we were sent with, a total of 15 started with us. only about 5 were alive after this. Stunned, Tink and Calzone and Sergeant Billis climbed their way out of the tent. And there, right in front of us, one of those fucking bird things. It looked like its leg was broken and was trying to flee. My character, grabbing it with its mechadendrites, smiled with glee, saying, "What a lovely prize you would be, and what wonderful sounds you will make when I dissect you." Keep in mind, my character has no idea how to do medicine. Regardless, we punched the thing in the face, knocking it unconscious, and then dragged it back to camp. This is when we realized that the Inquisition was only about 5 hours away. Yeah. So, we didn't have much time, to say the least. We had our tech priest 10 immediately sent over to check out the fucking disc. And Tink and Calzone immediately started trying to figure out how we could communicate with this bird thing. We needed to figure out why these things were on this planet. And more importantly, why were they viciously defending the fucking ship we were trying to board? I think this is where everything started going wrong in our crew. Not because we did something stupid, just because we opened a Pandora's box. Tink and Calzone started running around like headless chickens, realizing that we only had a matter of 5 hours to not only interrogate this thing, but also to dispose of any signs of heretical artifacts. So no pressure. We immediately run to the nurses' tents and immediately start requesting as many sedatives as we possibly can, or truth serum, but truth serum is in short supply. We try to communicate with the thing, and it's bad. Its English, or Low Gothic I should say, is broken, and it keeps just telling us, "Fuck you, monkey." Or mortal sometimes. We never really figured that out. He said the great God will consume you all. We responded by stabbing him in the neck with a syringe full of sedative. That didn't work. So we stabbed him with a second syringe in his heart. That didn't work. So Calzone won the bet that we had made, and we stuck it in his dick. Still, nothing. At which point we are panicking because we had wasted about an hour and a half trying to get those fucking sedatives, and we didn't have much time right now. So, Tink did the next best thing and grabbed him by the balls. I wish I was joking. With his metal hand, of course. No. And started to squeeze. That did the trick. Knocked him right unconscious. Might have also crushed an egg or two. At which point I asked Calzone to look into that thing's mind. A few words came through his mouth as he was probing through the mind. I heard words such as Prospero, wolf, and Calzone saw pyramids, a blue sky, and ground. A ship barely making it out of orbit, sent to get help. When he came out of it and told Tink what he saw, the cogitators in Tink's brain started whirring. His face went from excitement and then immediately to pure horror. Tink made a roll for history and realized just what these things were. And more importantly, where they were from. Those things were the ex-crew. the ship we were trying to recover was X thousand suns. A ship that had escaped Prospero. During the attack of the wolves. At which point, we realized just how deep in the shit we were. We were dealing with, as far as our characters knew, traitor Marines from the age of the Horus Heresy. Needless to say, we panicked. The commissar immediately shot the fucker in the head, told us that our time was up. We realized that we wasted another fucking half an hour. And at this point, we were panicking. We disposed of the body, burning it to a crisp with my flamer that I had kept in the back, and then remembered something very important. We had only about maybe a half hour to an hour left right now. The disc. I immediately ran to the disc, seeing 10 currently probing it with a smile on his face. A tech priest should never have a smile on his face. It only begots evil will. Tink, immediately panicking, tells him that we need to destroy the thing. He laughs, telling me that everything is gone and lost. Tink tells him that the ship is from Prospero. And 10 again laughs, saying he knew all along. And that, more importantly, it was to be his. At this point, we realized that 10 had been corrupted by chaos a very long time ago. Because he was one of the first men to ever step foot on that fucking ship. Immediately, my character pulls out his las pistol and shoots him in the gut. 10, in turn, does the exact same thing. My character was slightly faster, and immediately bashes him over the head, but not before he releases the fucking disc of Zeech. Immediately, our character starts seeing visions of mutations, tendrils, forbidden knowledge. And our heads swell. Guardsmen all around us start immediately being converted. And the Zeech disc is spinning, flying around the room like a fucking top, bouncing off walls. Tink immediately grabs the 10 by the scruff of his neck and demands to know what he did. 10 is almost certainly already dead, or at least dying right now, and in no real state. My character drags him out, then realizes that the colonel and a small division of guardsmen have been converted and are coming in our position. Tink, dropping 10, immediately starts pulling out his flamer and catches everything on fire. Meanwhile, Calzone is doing a small duel with the fucking Zeech disc, trying to keep it controlled. Immediately, Tink and him immediately start yelling at the guardsmen to stay the fuck away. Only 2 listen. The rest we have to cut down. What follows was one of the most tense fights of my life. Tink immediately gets shot in the gut by another guardsman with a las gun, immediately taking 2 shots. His circuits are sizzling and he's nearly dead. Calzone takes a shot to the shoulder and then to the leg. He's on one knee at the moment. And so, we both look to each other, realizing what's going to happen. And we take a swing at the fucking Siege disc. After a few glancing blows from my power axe, Calzone managed to finally shatter the fucking thing with his force sword. A few of the other guardsmen immediately move in to shoot us, only to be finished off by the fucking commissar. He looks at us with a very strange look, looking at the carnage and fire that is now spreading throughout the room. Smog immediately coming up to his nostrils and asks, "Are you too corrupted by chaos?" And I think I gave the last sane line that my character would ever give. If I was, would I have waited this long before killing you? The commissar puts down his pistol and looks at me very strangely. The Inquisition landed. And so, on one hit point apiece, Calzone and Tink lay down on the ground. Tink finally removing what was left of his respirator mask, opening his mouth, finally allowing his mouth to breathe clean air again. Pulls out a small wad of what looks to be a cigar from his pocket. Lights it with his flamer. And immediately starts smoking space weed. Because you know what? After that bullshit, I think everybody needs it. The doobie was passed around to one person, then the next. A doobie about the size of a tampon, according to our DM. All high as a motherfucking kite, waiting for the fucking Inquisition to come in on us so they could blow our brains out. And those were the first 2 sessions of our Rogue Trader game.